Ladies and gentlemen, let me show you how to cut this double-breasted pencil gown. It's very simple, it's very easy. Let's get into it. So to start the lower part, which is the skirt part, my fabric is on a fold and I went ahead to mark 1.5 inch for my zip allowance. After marking 1.5 inch for my zip allowance, I folded it in, secured it with my office pin, gave it a good press so that everything is well relaxed. Then I folded it again and gave it a good press. Okay, so now that top part is my waistline, so I mark circumference of my waist divided by 4. My own is 8 inches. Okay, then I added 1 inch for that, then I added 1 inch for seam allowance. Okay, so from that point I came down by 9 inches for my hip point. Okay, so after coming down by 9 inches for my hip point, I mark circumference of my hips divided by 4. My own is 11 inches and added 1 inch for sewing allowance. After doing that, I extended my tape by 17 inches, which is the length of my half blouse. Then I marked my knee length at 37 inches. Okay? After marking my knee length at 37 inches, the next thing I went ahead to do was whatever I marked for my hips, I minus 1.5 inches and marked it at my knee point. Okay, so my hip point, circumference of my hip divided by 4 minus 1.5 inch, that's what I marked at my knee point. Then I added 1 inch for seam allowance. Okay, so now after doing this, at the hem, whatever I marked at my knee point, I minused 1 inch and marked that at my hem. Okay, so if I marked 11 inches for my hips, at my knee point I marked 9.5 inches, at the hem I marked 8.5 inches. Okay, then I also went ahead to add 1 inch for my seam allowance. So now after doing all this, the next thing I went ahead to do was to connect all my markings together. Okay, I connected all my markings together. I don't know why sometimes when I want to shape my hips, I don't struggle. Why sometimes I struggle. So I connected all my markings together. This is what we have here, ladies and gentlemen. So now the front part of this gown is not going to have a dart. Okay, so I'm just going to mark 1 inch from whatever I marked for the waistline. I'm going to mark 1 inch out and I'm going to connect it to my hip line because I'm going to shape that place out. Okay, so here I was just trying to explain to you people the whole dynamics behind how I marked my waist, my hips, my knee and the hem. Okay, so for the front there will not be that there, so I just, from where I marked my waist width, I marked 1 inch and I connected it to the hips. Okay, because there's no dart in this front part, I came down by 0.6 inch and I'm just going to slant it to my waist measurement. Okay, that's for the front part. So I want you to pay close attention to see how I cut the front part. Okay, so now the next thing I went ahead to do was to cut. Okay, now so after cutting, this is what we have here for the front and back. The back is going to have all the darts, so we are not going to minus anything, we are not going to shape anything. So for the front, I went ahead to cut out that extra 1 inch we added for that. I cut it out because we didn't need it for the front. Then I just shaped the front part because there's no dart. Okay, so now after doing this, I just went ahead to cut out my lining. Okay, I went ahead to cut out my lining for the front part and for the back part. You guys, if my voice is sounding shaky, your girl lost her voice and she's trying to get it back. Okay, yeah. So now for the blouse part, this is the lining and that's my bust point, my nipple point, my under bust point, and the top to that, the length is my half blouse. Okay, so I mark 3 inches from the middle. I mark 3 inches at the top and at the bottom and I drew a straight line. Okay, so now after drawing a straight line, the next thing I went ahead to do is from that line I took my shoulder measurement. So my shoulder divided by 2 is 8.5, so I marked 8.5. I also did this at the bust point line. Okay, then I drew a straight line. Okay, so now after drawing a straight line, the next thing I went ahead to do was to mark my neck width. My neck width, I took it at 3 inches. Okay. So now after taking at 3 inches, at my shoulder line, I stepped it down by half an inch. After stepping it down by half an inch, I connected it to my neck width. Okay. I was just taking my time. This chalk, it showed me pepper when I was marking this cloth. So I connected it to my neck width. After connecting to my neck width, the next thing I went ahead to do is I marked, I came down by 4 inches. Okay. After coming down by 4 inches, I marked it. Then I came in by half an inch. You guys have seen me do this a lot now. I'm just trying to shape out how I'm going to insert my armhole curve. Then I just connected it to my shoulder line. After connecting my shoulder line, at my bust point, I marked circumference of my bust divided by 4. Mine is 9.5 inches. Then I went ahead to insert my armhole curve. Okay. So after inserting my armhole curve, this is what we have here, ladies and gentlemen. At my under bust point, I mark circumference of my under bust divided by 4. My own is 8 inches. At my half blouse point, I mark circumference of my waist divided by 4, and mine is 8 inches. The next thing I went ahead to do was to connect everything together. Okay, so now after connecting everything together, I added 2.5 inches for both my dart and my seam allowance. Okay, so the next thing I just went ahead to do was to connect everything together. Okay, so now after connecting everything together, the next thing I went ahead to do is from the top, I came down. I was just trying to explain one or two that I cannot even remember at this point. So from the top, I came down. This is what I was trying to explain to you guys. I remember I took my neck width at 3 inches. So from the top, I came down by 6 inches for my neck depth. Okay. So now let me show you how to easily shape your double breasted. Okay. So I came down by 6 inches for my neck depth and I connected it to my neck width. Okay. So now after doing this, the next thing I went ahead to do was to connect down my neck depth to the hem. Okay. So this is how I did it. Sometimes if you try to connect it directly, the double breasted, that's the overlap that you're trying to create, might be too big or too wide, and you have, very wide double breast. Okay. So now after doing this is what we have here. We successfully drafted the front part. Next thing I went ahead to do was to cut it out. Now if you look at this, my cutting, I forgot to add joining allowance for my shoulder line, so I'm going to show you how I did that later. So just same thing that we did for the front, my bust line, my nipple point line, my under bust point line, and the hem is my half blouse. So at my half blouse, I came in by 0.7 inches. I marked 0.7 inches and I slanted it into my bust line. Okay, so now after doing this, the next thing I went ahead to do was to mark 1 inch. So I marked 1 inch. After marking 1 inch, that's for now for my zip allowance, I just connected everything together. Okay. So because I'm cutting on my lining, you guys will see that I used pin to hold everything in place because I don't want to cry. So from my zip allowance line, I marked circumference. I marked my shoulder line divided by 2, which is 8.5 inches. Okay. So after marking 8.5 inches, I connected everything with a straight line. Now the next I went ahead to do, I marked my neck width at 3 inches. After marking my neck width at 3 inches, I marked my neck depth at 1 inch. So after marking 3 inches, 1 inch, I just connected everything together. It was difficult for me to shape this because I didn't want to use my big head to block you guys. That's to block the camera. Sure, you see how I'm suffering for you people. Oh yeah, tell me thank you in the comment section. Okay, so I just connected everything together. After connecting everything together, the next thing I went ahead to do was I came down by half an inch. After coming down by half an inch, I slanted it in. Okay. After slanting it in, the next thing I went ahead to do was come down by 4 inches. You guys saw me do this for the front part. I don't even know why I'm showing you guys for the back part, but anyway, potato. Okay. So I came in by half an inch. After coming in by half an inch, you guys know why we come in by half an inch, right? We come in by half an inch so that we can insert our armhole curve. Okay, so at my bust point line, I marked circumference of my bust divided by 4. Mine is 9.5 inches, and I just went ahead to insert my armhole curve. Okay, after inserting my armhole curve, at my under bust point, I mark circumference of my under bust divided by 4, which is 8 inches. At the hem, which is my half blouse, I mark circumference of my waist divided by 4, which is 8 inches. Then I went ahead to connect everything together. Okay, so now after connecting everything together, just like we did for the front part, I went ahead to add 2.5 inches for dart allowance and seam allowance. Okay, you people know I like to add joining allowance to my shoulder line, but somehow I forgot to do this when I was marking the shoulder side. So I'll show you guys how I did it on the main fabric. So now the next thing I went ahead to do was to cut it out. Okay, so after cutting all these things out, ladies and gentlemen, it is time to sew. It is sewing time.
Before going to the sewing part, ladies and gentlemen, let me put you onto something that is life-changing. If you are in the US, UK, and Canada, and you want to send money to Nigeria, Ghana, Kenya, and other African countries, let's say you want to buy something back home, you want to make a dress from Nigeria, you want to send money to me to make a dress for you, you can make this payment seamlessly using Lemfi. When you use Lemfi to send money back home, whoever you're sending the money to receives the money within minutes. While you that is sending the money, you do not pay any transaction fee. So whatever transaction you are carrying out, it is at zero transaction fee. It is efficient. Okay, the platform is very secure. You don't have to bother about your card details getting compromised, and they have the best conversion rate in the market. Now, if you're sending money for the first time and you're sending $100 and above, if you use my code Stitchadress, you're going to get $20 cash back. So whether you want to send money to your mom, to your sister, to your tailor, you want to buy African prints, you want to send somebody money to buy you African foods, ladies and gentlemen, you can do this transaction with Lemfi, and trust me, you will get good value for your money. Whoever you're sending the money to receive it within minutes. So after hearing all these good things about Lemfi, ladies and gentlemen, what are you waiting for? Why have you not downloaded Lemfi? Go to your app store, download Lemfi, sign up, and start enjoying seamless cross-border payments. Now let's go into the sewing tutorial. Okay,
the skirt, I've already used the lining to turn over the skirt. Okay, so this is what one piece of the back part looks like. Then this is what the second piece looks like. Now I went ahead to mark out my zip allowance, and I just joined it at the zip allowance. How do you turn it over? You guys know how they turn things over now. If you don't know how they turn it over, just join my beginner class. I will show you. Okay, after joining the zip allowance, I went ahead to sew my dart. Also, if you don't know how to mark and pick your dart, you need to join my beginner class. Okay, so after picking my dart, this is what the dart looks like. After picking and sewing my dart, this is what it looks like. So now, after doing all this for the back part, remember the front doesn't have a dart, so I just turned it over. The next thing I went ahead to do was to mark out my measurement, and I connected all my marked measurements together. So I placed the back side and the front part facing each other, and I just went ahead to join the skirt part. This is very straightforward, guys. Very simple, very straightforward. Pick the zip allowance, pick the dart, join the back part of the skirt to the front part, because the skirt part doesn't have the front part of the skirt doesn't have a dart. So you literally don't do anything on it, just join it to the back part. Okay, so now after joining the front part of the skirt and the back part of the skirt, this is what we have here, ladies and gentlemen. The next thing I wanted to do was just open up the slit. How long I wanted the slit to be, I opened it up. Okay, so now this is what we have going on here, ladies and gentlemen. Now it is time for the front part. Okay, so this is the not front part, this is the blouse part. You guys, I'm hungry. Okay, so it's time for the blouse, the front part of the blouse part. So now this is the fabric we are going to be working with for the front part. I've already gone ahead to interface it with my paper stay. Then I placed it on the right side of the fabric. Okay, you can see how they are facing each other. That is how your own should face. If not, you sew two of them towards one angle. Okay, so what I did here is I I turned over this part. Okay, after top stitching that part, just look at what I'm doing. After top stitching that part, I cut out the excess. After cutting out the excess, I gave it another top stitch. Okay, you cut out the excess. Okay, so after cutting out the excess, I gave it another top stitch, flipped it over, and I top stitched it again. Okay, so now for the back part, just like we did for the front part, same thing we're going to do for the back. Okay, so I placed the lining on the back part. After placing the lining on the back part, right side facing each other, I just went ahead to use the lining to use the main fabric to turn over the neck. Okay, turn over the neck outline. Then I cut it out. After cutting it out, I went ahead to top stitch. Okay, so after top stitching, you can choose to give it a good press, then top stitch the rest parts down or seal it down with your hemming gum. So after doing all that, this is what we have here, ladies and gentlemen. You can see I turned over that part, then used hemming gum to seal the rest part. Okay, so I told you guys that I didn't add joining allowance, so I had the opportunity now to add the joining allowance for my shoulder line. Okay, so remember that we notched the front part. You guys saw me doing it, even if I didn't say it. I left that clip there. So we are just going to align the double breast, the overlap, with the notch outline. Okay, so after aligning it together, I held it down with pin, took it over to my sewing machine, and I just top stitched. Okay, so after top stitching, the next thing I went ahead to do was to mark out my dart for the front part. After marking out my dart for the front part, I just went ahead to pick my dart, to sew my dart. Okay, so after picking my dart and sewing my dart, this is what it looks like, ladies and gentlemen. If my voice is sounding crook, I told you I lost my voice. You push manage it like that. Okay, yeah. So now for the back part, after turning it over, giving it a good press, top stitching and sealing the other sides with hemming gum, this is what we have here. I've aligned it, just like I did for the front. I had to add the joining allowance for my shoulder line. Okay, so now this is what we have here. So I've marked out my zip allowance. I just took it over to my sewing machine to connect it to join my zip allowance together. After joining it at the zip allowance, I went ahead to mark my dart, and it was falling. So I marked my dart, and I picked my dart. At this point, my village people were telling me, Ada, you should go and rest. You are tired. And yes, I was tired, but I was here filming video for you guys. Anyways, I went ahead to pick the dart for the two sides of the blouse. So this is what the front part looks like. Let me show you what the dart in the front looks like. Basically, same dart I picked for the front and for the back. Okay, so now this is what we have here for the back part. It's giving everything it's meant to give. Okay, so now the next thing I went ahead to do was to align the front and the back together at the shoulder line, and I just went ahead to join my blouse part at the shoulder line. Okay, so you guys know that a gown is made up of the top part and the bottom part. Okay, so if you see me saying gown, blouse part, don't be angry. Okay, so now I went ahead to mark out my measurement, my bust, circumference of my underbust, circumference of my waist. Okay, so after marking it out, I just went ahead to join the front part and the back part using the outline of my measurement I've already marked out. Okay, so I joined the two sides. This style is very, very straightforward and simple to sew, as you've seen, as we have been going forward. Okay, so for my zip allowance, I just went ahead to open the zip allowance, and the only reason I can open it like this because I joined it with loose stitches. If you do not join it with loose stitches, don't tear it open, you will cry. Someone say I did not tell you. Okay, so now after opening it at the zip allowance, I grabbed the skirt part. And I aligned the middle of the front part to the middle of the back part. Now you ask me, how did you know the middle when you have an overlap, when you have a double breast? Because of that notch I made. when I was cutting the front part. You see why it's very important. So after securing the top part and the bottom part together, I took it over to my sewing machine and I just joined everything together. Let me also tell you people, this thing takes time. Before you say, oh, Ada is joining it fast. This video is sped up. So take your time to join it. Okay? Just like I did. Forget that the video is sped up. So now after joining it, it's time for the sleeves. Yeah, I also inserted my zip, which I did not show you people. So now this is a basic sleeve and I minused 4 inches from my entire sleeve length. After minusing 4 inches, I marked it. After marking 4 inches, I drew a straight line and I went ahead to cut it out. Okay, I notched the middle of the sleeve. If you don't know how to cut a basic sleeve, I have about 3 or 4 tutorials on this channel on how to cut a basic sleeve. Check the link in the comment section. Okay, so now I went ahead to cut a flared, but you can't see the first part because everything is black. Okay, so I cut a flared. After cutting a flared, this is what we have here. So what we're going to do now is attach the flared to the sleeve. Okay, so I lined the sleeve before attaching the flared to the sleeve, and I folded some parts of the flared to give it fullness. Okay, so that's the sleeve there. So now the next thing I went ahead to do, after attaching the flared, I also as well joined the side of the sleeve. So now with that notch we did in the middle of the sleeve, I attached the sleeve, secured it with my office pin to the gown. Then I just went ahead to join my sleeve, to attach my sleeve to the gown. And ladies and gentlemen, this is what the final look of the gown looks like. This is what it's giving. I love this gown so much. You can see how full the sleeve is simply because I pleated the flared to give it a bit of fullness. Now for the double breast, which is the overlap, I went ahead to like hold it down, like tack it down a bit because it was just opening, like it's opening my boobs too much. I didn't want my boobs to show so much. So if you have that issue with your double breast, just hold it down with some stitches and you're good to go. So if you watched up to this point and enjoyed this video, if you're watching from YouTube, make sure you like, make sure you share, make sure you subscribe. If you're watching from Facebook, make sure you follow me, make sure you like, make sure you share, make sure you subscribe. And if you recreate this style, make sure you send me a picture or send it in the comment section. I'll see you in the next one.